Now continuing with my story of my journey with breast cancer. In November of 2015, I had a routine endoscopy. So basically, I have a history of having some stomach and gastrointestinal issues. So about every 6 months to a year, I have an endoscopy done just to make sure that everything is okay. So basically what happened was that when they did that routine endoscopy, they found cancer cells in my stomach, which they removed at that time. And so because of my history with cancer, they decided to do more testing. And when they did more testing is when they originally found that I had 2 brain mets in my head, in my brain. And so at that time, they had felt that it was something that was very, very serious at the time, and that it was something that I needed to take care of as soon as possible. And so I was actually living in Florida at the time, and so I decided to move back home to Wisconsin to be with my family and to, get the assistance from my family at home and just be around them. As you can imagine, being told you have stage 4 cancer it's not easy. And so I started to partner up with some clinical trials and some things that were helping for a while, and I went pretty much almost an entire year. So it's now 2017, so I've been able to kind of manage my cancer fairly well with this clinical trial that I was on. And it didn't go without its hiccups. It had a lot of hiccups and a lot of things that just went not so great, and some things that went really, really great. And on New Year's Eve, it seems that, well, let me back up actually even more than that. So before that started to happen, a lot of things that I didn't really share with anyone or tell anyone or really want to share with anyone is that for quite a while, since about October, I've been getting these kind of tremors in my hand. They were something that I was kind of just thinking it was part of my neuropathy, which is kind of a numbness and a tingling that I get in my hands and feet, due to also because of the chemotherapy that I got once before. And so I was kind of just chalking up this whole thing as just something that it wasn't that big of a deal, but it basically was causing my entire right arm to go numb. I would get twitching and kind of spasms in my hands, and we really didn't know what it was at first. It was just something that would occasionally happen to me. My doctors felt that if it was something that lasted more than 5 minutes or went on for over a 24-hour period, that then it would be something to worry about. But until then, it was just something I needed to monitor. So basically I was getting these, at first it was like once a month. So I got one in like October, in the middle of October, and then not again until like November. And then in November they started to happen more frequently, maybe once a week. In December they were maybe twice a week. It would get to the point where it took up my face, so I would get numbness on this whole part of my face, down through my nose and through my mouth, all to this side and into my ear here. So basically this whole portion of my face would go completely numb. I would get kind of a twitch in my head here, and then in my here, this finger, I don't feel this finger at all. And I would get the twitching in my hands as well, and numbness. But like I said, it never lasted more than a minute or two, it went away, and I wouldn't get it, again for the rest of the day, or if I did, it wouldn't be till later on that day. It wasn't something that lasted over 24 hours or more than 5 minutes, and so, I kind of just, did what the doctor said, and not really, not really paid attention to it. So coming down to New Year's Eve, which I felt great. I spent New Year's Eve with my family, and we laughed, and we watched some TV, and we took photos together, and it was just a happy day. Nothing out of the ordinary had happened, and so everyone in my house had went to bed. I stayed up watching, just the normal New Year's Eve type of shows that are on. And that night when I went to bed, I felt the tremor happen. And then I'm not really sure if I blacked out or if it continued on. I don't really remember. I don't have any recollection of it. But I woke up, and when I woke up, it was several hours later, and I woke up to my stepdad trying to shake me up and wake me up and asking me if I was okay. And I had no clue what was happening. I had no clue what was going on. And I'm looking around, and my room is, there's the fire department's here with, the paramedics and ambulance and everything. And they're telling me that I had a seizure. The whole thought of the whole situation is so crazy to me, because it's not something that I even remember. I don't even remember it happening, but my family talking to me about it and telling me about it, and it was a scary thing. I basically, after it happened, I basically was kind of frozen. I apparently was looking at my mom in the face, and I wasn't responding. I could look and I could move my eyes, but I couldn't do anything. I couldn't talk. I couldn't verbalize anything. I couldn't do anything until I finally came to and came out of it, and they took me to the hospital and checking, my pulse and my heart rate. My blood pressure was ridiculously high. My pulse was in the 120s. It was really, really bad as well. And so they took me to the hospital where they ran some tests, and when they did another CT scan, that's when they realized that my tumors that were once quite small and probably about the size of peas had now grown to about the size of gumballs, huge gumballs. And there was quite a bit of swelling all around my brain, which is more what the doctors feel caused the seizure, is the swelling and not so much the tumors themselves, even though they're quite large. They feel that it's the swelling that kind of caused the seizure to happen. And so they right away started putting me on anti-seizure medication and some steroids to kind of bring down the swelling in my head, as well as some other medications to kind of help with, some pain, because when it happened, when I had the seizure, I had so much pain. My hip was hurting me like crazy. And I guess it's just because your body tenses up so much and it doesn't really relax. And so, I didn't have any, they scanned it to see if I had any like broken bones or anything. And it just, maybe just pulled or tightened muscles and such that I had. But I mean, like my calf muscles, I felt like I had the worst Charlie horse on the planet on both calf muscles. Like I would need help to, every time I got into bed, I would have to like have somebody help me put my legs into the hospital beds and everything. If I go to the bathroom or whatever, I would need somebody to walk with me because they were fearful that I was going to either collapse or pass out or have another seizure. They ran some more tests while I was there, and I wasn't in any immediate danger anymore, and so they let me go home the following day. And I had today, which is the 4th of January, so 4 days into the new year, I had some follow-up care appointments and some doctor's appointments, and so basically everything that we were trying before, we kind of put a kibosh on it. I stopped all my clinical trials I was on, all my medication I was on before. We kind of just, are starting fresh. And, a lot of those clinical trials that I was on before were very kind of, they were not as invasive, not as, they weren't as aggressive as my doctors are telling me that we need to be. Knowing how big, my tumors have gotten and how progressive my disease has come, they just feel that we need to be like 10 times more aggressive with it. My tumors are actually too big to actually do surgery on, just because of the location of where my tumors are is actually in the part of the head that, deals with vision and memory and things like that. And so, when they remove tumors from your head or from anywhere, they don't just remove, your tumor is this big, they don't just remove that space. They remove that space plus like about that much, because of the borders around it can be also cancerous cells. So they want to make sure that they don't only get rid of, your tumor, but also any sign or speck of it, just to make sure that it doesn't come back. And so the part of the brain in which mine are at, this would be very challenging for them to be able to get good margins, to be able to completely remove the tumors completely, as well as any like remaining outside types of little cells, microscopic cells. There's also stuff that imaging doesn't pick up, so if there's little spots that imaging doesn't even see, it's very difficult for them to, completely remove all of it from your head. When they were smaller, it would have probably been a lot better then, but we're not going to go there. But here are some pictures of my MRI scans that I had done the other day that show my 2 tumors, and clearly they are quite sizable. Thank you for watching. I am going to be posting another video. I'm having to kind of post this in 3 separate sections, so please stay tuned for part 3 of my journey with breast cancer.